me tell you about Rebecca. I was, loading up a car in my truck this morning, and I went over and took the keys over to the office, and I'm walking back, and some woman started screaming frantically and everything like that, so I immediately went to the side on her. And I was like, who is this person? But it ended up being Rebecca, and we did not know. We were staying at the same Best Western Hotel a couple of doors down, and so it was great to meet you this morning. Thanks for, putting a freaky feeling in me. It's all good. But what a pleasure and honor to be here with each and every one of you all, and I want to thank you first and foremost for your prayers, because it was 2 years ago on a Saturday, on Memorial Day weekend, when my motorcycle was struck from behind on I-35, mile marker 356. God has a sense of humor. I was just north of the town called West Texas. And no one survives a motorcycle accident on a motorcycle on an interstate highway at 75 miles per hour. But here I am because of your thoughts and your prayers and the grace of God that enables me to be here. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you for lifting me up to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because there's no way that I will be here without his grace. So God bless you and thank you for that. What I want to do is talk to you all about two things. It is about Memorial Day, and it is about what it means to be a protector of freedom. Because there are some of us in this room, once upon a time we took an oath. For me, it was 31 July 1982 at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. When I stood there, and my father was at one shoulder. My father was a World War II veteran, a corporal in the United States Army. He served at a time when the United States Army was segregated, but he repeated those words. My older brother, a Vietnam era Marine infantryman, wounded in a place called Khe Sanh, he said those words. My nephew, who is a lieutenant colonel right now and has been selected to command an artillery battalion out of Fort Lewis, 3 combat tours of duty, he said these words. My father-in-law, who served 24 years, 2 combat tours of duty in Vietnam in the 23rd Division of Maricao, he's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. He said those words. And right now, my son-in-law, my youngest daughter's husband, is at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, going through basic training. He said those words. What are those words? It is I, Alan Bedard West, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation. And we concluded by saying, so help me God. And for those of us that take that oath has no statute of limitations. And if you're a true protector of freedom in Texas and the United States of America, those words are within you as well. And so when we think about Memorial Day, I always tell people, don't go out and say Happy Memorial Day, because it's not anything to be happy about. What you should be saying is honor Memorial Day, because you should honor the men and women throughout history, from April the 19th of 1775 at Lexington Green to the present day right now, who have stood up and said that they will be protectors of freedom. Because that's what keeps us as the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. And you don't have to put on a uniform to be a protector of freedom. You just got to understand what freedom is. You got to pass that on to subsequent generations so that they understand what freedom is. And as long as we continue to do that, it is the thing that these young kids that are sitting here, they'll be here 30 years from now. They'll be here 40 years from now. They'll be here 50 years from now. They will talk about us and what we did to stand in the gap to protect freedom. Because if we fail in passing that along, then the greatest experiment in individual personal governance will be lost to the world. Remember what Abraham Lincoln said there at Gettysburg, that we have to continue to give increased devotion to those who have made the last full measure of devotion, so that this great nation shall not be forgotten. He referred to the United States of America as the last best hope for mankind. When I think about the last best hope for mankind in the United States of America, I think about the great state of Texas. And Brady kind of brought up some history, and I want to also share some other names. Because I was born and raised in Georgia, he said. Just the same as the guy who was the first vice president of the Republic of Texas. And there's a university here named after him. His name was Mirabeau Bonaparte Lamar. Just the same as the guy who stood there on October the 2nd of 1835 in a little town called Gonzales. He was a West Point a West Point dropout, who was from Millersville, Georgia. He was also the same man who was massacred with his troops in a place called La Bahia. His name is James Fadden. Just the same as the very first Secretary of War for the Republic of Texas, who was there at San Jacinto. His name was Thomas Jefferson Rusk. He has a county named after him, and he has a government building named after him in Austin. And we already heard about Sam Houston. And that's why I'm so honored that I carry a very special name. It's called Volunteer for Life, because I did attend the University of Tennessee. And there is no other college or university in the United States of America that has that nickname, the Tennessee Volunteers, because of what happened here. For those 13 glorious days, from the 24th of February to the 6th of March, because the state that gave the most people that were there at the Alamo was the state of Tennessee, 38 individuals, which included a former member of Congress, just like I was a former member of Congress. And so when I talk about Texas, and the fact that when you are coming down here to Washington on the Brazos, you see that little sign saying that you're now traveling along the Texas Freedom Trail. And that's very special, because there are people that are coming to Texas for all the so-called reasons, because they want to be here because we don't have state income tax. They want to be here because their businesses can thrive. But they are not coming here because they understand what it means to be on the Texas Freedom Trail. They're not coming here to understand the history of the great state of Texas. You got people that have come here, they've never been to Gonzales. They've never been to the Alamo. They've never been to Washington on the Brazos. They've never been to the San Jacinto battlefield. And that's why this organization is so important. Because it's not just about you going and standing and protecting these monuments. It's about you being in your communities and telling that story. Because sadly, our children are not being taught these things. Now, they've been told everything about you don't have to be a little boy, you don't have to be a little girl, you can be whatever you want to be, undermining the omniscience and omnipotence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and God. I gotta tell you something. If I had ever come home from school one day and tell my dad that I don't think I want to be Alan, I want to be Aline, I would have dentures. But you know what else? My dad would have said, who put that in your brain? Who put that idea in your mind? And that's what it means to be a protector of freedom. Because the greatest freedom that we can pass on to our children is that they must come to understand that God doesn't make a mistake in creating you. If you want to protect freedom, you got to protect life. If you want to protect freedom, you have to protect our history. If you want to protect freedom, you have to protect the institutions that make us great and make us who we are. And that means that you have to study to understand. What does it say in the Bible? It says that my people suffer for lack of knowledge. And I've never seen such a time as it is right now in the United States of America. Yesterday, I was at the NRA convention. I used to be a board member of the National Rifle Association. And to have people that were standing outside and protesting and condemning, because they don't understand that there's an enumerated right in the Constitution of the United States of America, just the same as that same enumerated right is in the Texas State Constitution. It says you have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. But they're trying to blame liberty-loving, freedom-loving people who they don't have blood on their hands. See, all of us here, wouldn't it be great if we knew that right and you had just regular, everyday citizens that would go out and protect our schools? The fact that you had parents that were standing there outside that school in Uvalde, that were begging the law enforcement to go in and do what the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Texas enables them to do, to be armed and to be able to go in there and protect freedom and liberty and to protect their children. But we've forgotten that. We have gotten to a point where we believe that we are helpless, we are defenseless, that everything has to be turned over to the government. Every single time with all of these shootings, it's been the government that has let us down. It's been the government that has not tracked these individuals. It's been the government that has not paid attention to social media posts. Sutherland Springs happened because a person who had a dishonorable discharge from the United States Air Force because of domestic violence. And if you know on a 4473 background check, if you have a dishonorable discharge from the military, you cannot own a weapon. If you've been convicted of a felony offense of domestic violence, you cannot own a weapon. But the United States Air Force failed to put him into the system, and so this individual went and purchased a firearm. But if you know what happened in Sutherland Springs, it wasn't law enforcement. It wasn't DPS or anybody. It was a citizen. It was a Texan. It was a man by the name of Stephen Williford, who did, as we say in the military, warriors move to the sound of the guns. And he did so to protect freedom and liberty. And he neutralized that target. I have never seen such a time in our United States of America, and I'm 61, where we are so devoid of understanding our fundamental rights, freedoms, and liberties. And if there's one state that has to make the stand for the rest of the United States of America, it's this state right here. I hope that you all continue to have this gathering right here on these hallowed grounds. Because if you're a Texas freedom protector, you're protecting what happened just a few yards away from where we're sitting right now. And in protecting what happened on March the 2nd of 1836, you're protecting what happened in this country on July the 4th of 1776. Because if we fail to stand up here in Texas, if we fail to make sure that everyone knows that when you look at that flag with the Lone Star, it is the Lone Star that illuminates the other 49 stars on that flag. Because no other state has its own Declaration of Independence. No other state has been its own nation. That's a very important guardianship that you have. And so the men who were there on the 2nd of March of 1836, in that wide open building, freezing temperatures, rain, they sat in there and they scribbled out that Declaration of Independence. And we have to understand the sacrifices and commitments that we must make today to honor the sacrifice and commitment that was made for us so many years ago. Because now they're looking upon us. And if we fail in this mission, in this moment in time, ask yourselves what history will say about us. Because we know who ends up writing history. It's the victor. And America is facing a time, Texas is facing a time right now, where people don't even believe that we have sovereignty. The drug trafficking crisis, the human and sex trafficking crisis, the number one state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking is Texas. The top two cities in the United States of America for sex trafficking are Houston and Dallas. Once upon a time, I could have made you do push-ups. See, I'm nobody now. So I just got to wait for you to shut off your phone. You just interrupted my mojo. But that's okay. It's all good. I love you, dear. But the thing is that how can we allow this to happen in Texas? How can we allow millions of people to come across our border illegally? How can we allow this fentanyl to come across our border, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans? The number one killer of our young people, 18 to 45, is fentanyl, which comes from China. We have people that are firing across our border into the great state of Texas. Last time I checked, sir, you fire across the border of a sovereign state, a sovereign nation, that's an act of war. Amen. Well, what are we doing to protect the freedom that we have here? So we need you. Remember, it talks about that well-armed militia. That's what you are. Now, there are some people, maybe are recording this and saying, Alan West is talking about insurrection. Alan West is talking about overthrowing the government. No. I'm talking about understanding what the founding fathers understood. That an armed individual is a citizen. A disarmed individual is a subject. That's why you have the Second Amendment to back up the First Amendment and all the rest of those freedoms that you have in the Bill of Rights. Every single time when you see totalitarian systems and tyranny take over, go back and look at Adolf Hitler, when he put Hermann Goring in charge of the Ministry of Interior, and they had all the Germans register their weapons. And then he ended private gun ownership. Up to just recently, what happened with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, when he got rid of private gun ownership. What always happens after that is that the people become subjects, the people become sheep, the people become tyrannized by an overarching government. This is why you're here, to protect that freedom. And you must make this stand. You must find the courage within yourself. One of the things I always tell people is that God does not call the equipped, but he equips those he calls. And you must understand the call that is out there right now. Throughout the history of the United States of America, throughout the history of Texas, these simple people that came here, they were called second chance men. You know, William Barrett Travis was born and raised in South Carolina. He came here by way of Alabama because he killed a guy in Alabama he thought that was cavorting with his wife. All of these guys. David Crockett lost his congressional re-election. That's when he said those infamous words, "May you all go to hell, I'm going to Texas." And see, these were ordinary men and women. But they came here and did something extraordinary. And so you have to see yourself as that ordinary man or woman, that right now is your moment to do something extraordinary. And you got to reach out and take that mantle. See, life is much like a relay racing track. If you never ran track, let me explain it to you. In a relay race, you have an exchange zone. And with that exchange zone, you got to make sure you pass the baton in that right moment. If you pass the baton too early, you're disqualified. If you pass the baton outside the exchange zone, you're disqualified. If you drop the baton, not only are you disqualified, you're embarrassed. Now is the moment in time that we have the baton, which is a torch of freedom. And we're in an exchange zone. And we've got to pass it on to the next generation. And if we drop it, which some people want us to do, then we become the first generation that does not leave something great to our children and grandchildren than was left for us. See, my dad, born in South Alabama, jumped the Chattahoochee River, grew up in South Georgia. He answered a call to this nation at a time when this nation did not see him as being equal to everyone else. But that didn't matter, because he knew the evil and the tyranny that he had to stand up and face. And my dad sat me down on the steps of his house, 651 Kennesaw Avenue, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, 30308, 404-874-2836, the dial phone, I'll never forget it. And at the age of 15, he challenged me to be the first officer in our family. Because my dad understood he had to pass the torch. And that's how we do it in America. That's how we do it in Texas. Because it's about your legacy. It ain't about the Ford F-150 that you have. It ain't about the bass boat that you have. It ain't about how many acres you got. It's about whether or not you pass that torch. And if you say that you're a Texas freedom protector, if you have stepped up and accepted this challenge, this call, this is serious freaking business, folks. Because right now is a time when there are people who want to take it away from you. You know, back in 480 BC, there was an incredible battle. A 1,000,000-man army of the Persians, led by Xerxes, decided that they wanted to invade Greece, to take over the Hellespont. And why? Because Xerxes wanted to defeat freedom. Xerxes wanted everyone under his tyranny, everyone under his control. He did not believe in this thing called democracy and individual liberty. If you understand, Greece at that time were a whole bunch of different city-states. There was one city-state that produced the most renowned warriors of ancient military history. That was the city-state of Sparta. And Leonidas, the king of Sparta, said that I will go and stand in the gap. And he asked for the entire Spartan army to go under his leadership. The Council of Ephor said that there was a religious celebration coming up, and he could not take the entire army. Leonidas knew that he had to answer the call. Leonidas knew the threat that was coming for freedom there in Greece. So Leonidas took his own personal guard, it's 300 Spartans, and they marched from Sparta up to a very narrow gap called Thermopylae. And there they stood in that gap. And on the very first day of that battle, 480 BC, at Thermopylae, Xerxes and the Persians told Leonidas and the Spartans to lay down your weapons. And Leonidas replied in those two words that are immortalized in Greece. Molon lave. Molon lave, translated into English, means come, take. And for 3 days they stood in that gap. Fast forward to the 2nd of October of 1835, when the Mexican cavalry showed up in a town not too far away from here, and they wanted their cannon back. Those Texians stood there in the gap for us, and they said, come and take it. This is your present day, come and take it moment. And just the same as the Spartans had a code, the code of Lycurgus, it said there will never be surrender and there will never be retreat. That's the exact same code that we must live by. And just the same as what happened back then in 480 BC, on the final day of that battle, when a Greek trader told the Persians about a secret mountain pass where they could come back around and encircle the Spartans, Leonidas chose one Spartan warrior, and he asked him to take a message back to Sparta and to all of Greece. And those words are immortalized on the statue of the Spartan warrior today in Thermopylae. Those words are, go tell the Spartans and strangers passing by that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. And what happened at the Alamo when William Barrett Travis, on the 24th of February, decided to write a letter? He gave it to Juan Seguin. And just the same as the Spartans said there will be no surrender and no retreat, William Barrett Travis wrote in that letter, there will be no surrender and no retreat. And we remember those 183 today. Are you willing to make that same commitment and make this same stand? If you're serious about being a Texas freedom protector, when you walk out of these doors, understand the title that you have accepted. It's a title that will define you, not just in your life now, but for all times going forward. God bless you all. Thank you so much for having me. And let's go out and protect freedom for the great state of Texas, for the United States of America, and indeed for the free world. Thank you.
That's pretty good talking right there. My phone went off, it was on silent, thank God, all right. I don't know how many push-ups I can.
You can do Air Force push-ups.
We are honored to have Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here with us. This has been a huge moment for all of us. Very inspiring words that need to be heard and need to be heeded by the people. That's why I continue to request responsible recruitment, finding people with the right mentality, with the right mindset, people that want to maintain what we have and not give up what is endowed by our Creator. It's been a privilege to listen to you, Lieutenant Colonel. But do it again sometime, and we'll make it closer up north, so we can.
I like it right here.
Yeah, it's a neat spot. We got history markers up there too, though. But this is hallowed ground. We had a little bit of time, and I don't know, Colonel, if you have any time. I know you're supposed to be somewhere else for a Q&A session.
Let's go.
If anybody has any questions for the Colonel.
Yes, sir.
As a private citizen, going to live in Texas, what are we allowed to do to help out the southern border that's crossing down there, if anything?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that we could do. I mean, you have a Texas state militia that should be, incorporated in. You also have the Texas State Guard, and so you have all of these assets and resources. But I think the most important thing is that you have to enable our border sheriffs to be able to go out there and deputize others to be in the service. I'll give you a great case in point. When you go down to Kenny County, I don't know if y'all know what Kenny County is. It's Brackettville, Texas. Just it's between Uvalde there and also Del Rio. They've got 16 miles along the Rio Grande and the border, and I want to say that they've got over 200 some odd square miles of that county. Sheriff Brackett only has 6 sheriff's deputies, and that's just incredible. And when you look at the mission of our Texas DPS down there, they're just on the roads. Now, some of us have been in the military can understand something. If you're just out there on the roads, you can't protect or guard anything. You can't protect your border unless you're on the border, unless you're in the bush. And I've been down there at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because, a good commander goes out there when the bad guys come out. The bad guys ain't gonna come out right in the middle of the day. They're gonna come out in the middle of the night. And if you're not down there patrolling doing what is necessary, then you're in trouble. The Constitution of the United States of America, Article 4, Section 4, is called the Guarantee Clause. 2 things that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union. Number 1, a Republican form of government, because America is a constitutional republic. America is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. The second thing is supposed to protect every state in the union from invasion.
That's what we have.
They're not doing it. So Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3 of the Constitution says exactly what every state can do if actually invaded. And so all we have to do in the state of Texas is invoke Article 4, Section 4, saying that you guys are allowed an invasion. And when you have millions of people come across your border illegally, that's not just illegal immigration, that's an invasion. When you have people firing across your border, that's an invasion. And so the governor of the state of Texas, in the Texas State Constitution, Article 4, Section 7, one of his duties and responsibilities as the commander-in-chief of the Texas military forces is to repel invasions. Very clear. Why we're not doing it? I ain't the guy to ask. But I'll tell you, cover the ears for the kids. That shit would not be happening if I was there. And y'all say, how can you remember all this stuff? I'm not really that smart. You just jump out of airplanes. That's why I carry this around. Okay? Because this is your American Express credit card. You're not supposed to leave home without it. This is the Declaration of Independence of the United States Constitution. This is your contract. If you don't study and understand this contract, And this is why you have all this mess that's going on right now. Because again, my people suffer for lack of knowledge. Next question. Anybody? Go on. Yes, sir.
I'm just here visiting, and
Where are you from?
I moved here I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Yeah,
and
been there.
I recognized that something was really wrong with my state and public school education, and I felt pretty alone. And I wanted to find where are those patriots and Americans that are willing to defend the country and their families and their values. And I thought the last place is going to be Texas. And so that's why I moved here 3 years ago. And especially with everything like after the 2016 election and the election that happened in 2020 and everything going on, I know I'm not the only one. So where can we find those people that are like me that are coming to Texas because they want to have those real Texas values,
Yep.
and they want to come and hold the last frontier like the Alamo
Yep.
of the whole country. So how can I become more involved, and how can we draw in more of those young, strong men like myself
Sure.
to protect?
That's why you got an organization like this, and you got to get out there and talk about this organization. You have to become a recruiter for this organization. You have to engage people. You know, so many of us see new folks that are moving into our neighborhoods and our communities. You see the U-Haul vans that are coming in, and you need to go up and talk to them. You need to go and engage them. You need to go up and say, hey, welcome to Texas. Here's a pecan pie. Now, why are you here? I'm sorry, I say pecan because I'm from Georgia. Y'all are real smart. I say pecan, okay? But if you don't engage these people, and you don't tell them how special Texas is, then people trash your house. And that's what folks are doing. So when you have these folks that are new moving in here, you got to talk to them. You got to get them to understand what makes this house, this state, unlike any other state. Because if they don't understand the history of Texas, and they don't understand the sacrifice and commitments that so many have made, in just 185 years, this is incredible what is happening in this state. You know, energy independence from the United States of America came from the great state of Texas. Now, I find it unconscionable that we will have people in the state of Texas that will vote for someone that says, I want to destroy oil and gas industry. You got to be stuck on stupid. But if we're not out there telling people, then they'll go, you know, down these paths. And so what I need you to do is to go out and be the choir member that sings solo. Because too often we come here in our little echo chambers, but you've got to go out and be empowered. And once again, you've got to be informed, you've got to be educated before you go out and become activated. Because whatever they say, you got to be able to counter. You got to be able to make them feel absolutely stupid. And they start to froth at the mouth, scream, yell, call your names, and all that kind of stuff. You go on the attack. I get called white man's porch monkey, Uncle Tom, house N-word, sellout, all this stuff. You really think I give a damn about you calling me a name? I've been shot at. But so often that, and I'm talking to my white brothers and sisters in here, so often when people call you a racist, you back down. And you know you're not a racist. That's Pavlovian.
Right.
If you reward bad behavior, you're going to get more bad behavior. They're going to continue to call you a racist and a white supremacist and all that crap.
Right.
If you're standing on the moral high ground, you know what is right, then stand on the moral high ground. So I need you to go out there and you need to tell that story. You need to find those other young men. Have a barbecue and have your friends over and start talking to them. You got email lists, all of y'all. Y'all out there on social media, whatever. Tell people the truth. Don't be cowards about this if you're really serious about being a Texas freedom protector.
Because the other side's doing it. I've seen my friends get brainwashed on their heart and their mind, and they die from drugs, and so they're talking. So we got to combat it, you know, at that same level, and especially now with technology, the outreach is massive, and
Absolutely.
with artificial intelligence, and they've really weaponized that, and we've got to be able to counteract it, bring the fight at the same level.
You got to be on offense. Nobody wins on defense. Show me a battle that was ever won on defense. And even if you have a successful defense, you got to counterattack. Because you got to drive the enemy off the battlefield. And so too often we in our movement as constitutional conservatives, we're always reacting instead of going out and being proactive. So I need you to be proactive. The most important thing about being proactive, let me tell you something. Again, I'm not a real smart guy. The Army taught me, you write stuff down. Every one of y'all needs 3x5 cars. because you need to be prepared. This is my ammunition to beat you on the ideological battlefield. That's why these things are always here. Left and right breast pocket. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, 3 by 5 points. And I'll wear you down.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
When are words not going to be enough?
Yeah.
Anytime when people decide that they're going to impose their will upon you and subjugate you, then it's a whole new ballgame. Now, I pray that it never comes to that. But I tell you that there are people that are really pushing hard for that. But I want you to understand something. They're in the minority. They want you to believe that they are the majority. But what the left has done, and let me read you one of the great quotes that I carry here. This one says, let me find it real quick. Okay, here we go. The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. They come to be accepted by degrees, by dint of constant pressure on one side and constant retreat on the other, until one day when they are suddenly declared to be the country's official ideology. That quote came from the 1950s, Ayn Rand. Where we are in the United States of America has been going on for the last 50, 60, 70 years. People have gone in and taken over our education systems. They've gone in and taken over the entertainment industry. They've gone in and taken over the media. They've gone in and taken over our courts. Right under our noses. And we got to stand up, we got to fight, we got to push back. I always tell people that the most important elected position in the United States of America, it ain't governor, it ain't president, it ain't congressman, it ain't senator, it's school board. And finally, the best thing that came out of COVID, the only good thing that came out of COVID, parents were locked in the house and their kids were locked in the house. And parents finally saw the crap that their kids were being taught. And they stood up and they pushed back. And that's why all of a sudden, they want to declare parents that are showing up at school board meetings domestic terrorists because they don't want any opposition. What does it say in Proverbs 22:6? Train up a child in the way that they should go, so that when they grow old, they shall not depart from it. Adults need to start being adults in their homes. Stop allowing teachers and all these other people to indoctrinate your kids with principles and values that are the antithesis to what you believe in. Like I said, if I had come home and told my dad that I wanted to be a little girl, we would have had a non-verbal conversation. And then my dad would have found out who planted that idea in my head. Finally, we're waking up to that. But local governance is so important. City council, school board, county commission. So that's why I need to get you engaged. So I would like to see one of the things that the Texas Freedom Protectors do. You guys got to get out there and start finding people to run for some of these elected offices. I know you're 501c3, but that doesn't mean that you can go out and find some of your members and try to support them to be in some of these elected positions at the local level. That's how you build a farm team. So that's what I need you to start. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Up. We will close with our devout, inspirational leader.
So, is the run for Senate next for Lieutenant Colonel Allen West?
You know, I live my life based upon Proverbs 3:5-6. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Lean not upon your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. I don't know what God has in store for me, but I know one thing. That God told Joshua to be strong and good courage, for the Lord thy God shall not leave you nor forsake you. So I will continue to every single day be obedient to the oath that I took to the Constitution of the United States of America, be a protector of freedom in the great state of Texas, and be strong and good courage. And I don't know what he has for me in store, but understand, you don't have to be in a political position to stand and fight for freedom. So maybe it's just about being a voice that can inspire people to stand up and be part of a movement. To me, that's just as great. Anybody else? Again, thank you so much. And as they say in Italy, Piacere. Grazie. Thank you.
One more time for our fellow Texan, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Lieutenant Commander Hector Quinones.
You always gotta have a little bit of fun. You always have kids and you always have new issues, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our kids, right? Right. So, we take it fun. I don't plan speeches, so I don't plan talks, I always do it at the cuff, and either I succeed or I fail. So with that being said, we do appreciate, again, I know I've said it, and you told me stop it, but it's not in my nature. But with that being said, we do appreciate you taking the time to be here with us and being able to share words of wisdom that sometimes we just really need. And a lot of people don't hear them enough. And the message is kind of like, to your point, of you moving here, originally, and some of you guys are going to have a heart attack, originally I'm from California. And I joined the military, get over it, move on. That being said, originally from California, I joined the military in 1984, and ended up here in the great state of Texas, and we said we were never going to leave ever again because this is the right place with our values. And we made the decision to make our home here. And because of that, I've had the opportunity to meet with great people and be able to have the opportunity to be able to share great values and then try to grow an organization and help other people wanting to do the same thing to be able to take care of families at the local area. And we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But as long as we're here trying, we're making the attempt. And sir, you do that every single time. And we appreciate that. You're a great example. And if it wasn't for people like you that took the time to do that, a lot of us think we can't do it. And you just said it, get out there at the grassroots level and get involved. He shows us that example, and that's what we need. And we appreciate that. And we wanted to present you with something, and let me go ahead and read the words that I have on here. But you know what? I admit, give me a second, I said I admit, that I'm not always perfect. I admit that I am old. I am secure.
That you remember your glasses.
But I did remember my glasses. So let me go ahead and read this. 2022, Colonel Alan West, Texas Freedom Protectors, good people. In grateful appreciation of your dedication and service to the great state of Texas. Being a leader is not an easy thing, can you all hear me back there? Okay. Being a leader is not an easy thing, as there are many eyes upon you, and not always supportive as we want them to be. However, as a leader and a great example, you have not let this deter you. If anything, it has made you more determined. We recognize the great and humble service that you have contributed to your country while serving in the Army and serving your fellow Americans through multiple deployments and assignments. However, that was not enough for a great leader such as yourself, and you have continued to serve diligently in the political sector. The state of Texas is that much better because of your tenacity to ensure that our leadership does what is right for its people. As an organization, we are very proud to have you here as our guest speaker. As Texans, just like in the military, we are proud to call you brother and prouder to know you will continue to fight for our great state of Texas. For the men and women of Texas Freedom Protectors, thank you for continued and selfless service. Thank you, sir. And we have another presentation. By the way, real quick, I'm going to bring a couple more. I'm going to bring my wife up here. The reality is, and I know Lieutenant Colonel Alan West knows this very well. We are lucky to be able to do the things we have because we have supportive family. And I know that his wife supports him, and she's not here today, but we recognize
She's with a grandson. She don't care about that.
Trying to make it sound good, working here a little bit here. We wanted to be able to recognize, my wife was actually the one that made this, and she had something to take care of. Well, I'm gonna let her present herself. Sure.
Just like you served in the military and served in the political arena and served in citizenry, your wife does that as well. And so I made for this as a reminder that she has the strength. And it takes strength is fiercely tender. And that's what we'll see in this put on.
And it's red, it's artillery red. I like that.
I hope
She will. And I just want to tell you again, some of you all may know what happened with my wife up there with the Dallas police. Thank you for your prayers. And, when you're right, like I said, you're on the moral high ground, you fight. I don't care who you're standing against. You be tenacious. And men, you protect your women. You don't let anybody abuse the person that you love the most. Because if you allow that to happen, you're going to be sleeping outside. Thank you.
All the people here, the one person I did not expect to interrupt that great speech was my beautiful wife. But thank you for doing it. My apologies, sir.
That's okay. You can do push-ups for
The Air Force.
the Air Force.
We would like to present you with 3 shirts that we would like you to wear proudly.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
God bless. What?
Still coming. So, all of y'all know I'm a fat boy from a little town, and it's a little town called Bowie, Texas.
Yep.
The famous Bowie knife is kind of a symbol in our town. We have the largest Bowie knife in the Guinness Book of World Records. Kids, would you please get your cameras out and take a picture as I present this? Thank you.
Patty's dead.
Probably. But this is an authentic Jim Bowie knife I'd like to present to you on behalf of TFP, and just let me. Yeah, and it's just kind of the small towns in Texas believe in you, and as long as you have something from my little town.
All right, next. Y'all trying to make me cry. It ain't happening. Right in front of me. Wow.
While you're saying that, thank you for your presence and thank you for all that you've done. We'd like to present you a plaque of our extreme pictures today. And thank for you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank y'all. Thank you. What?
All right.
Now you're
Yes.
you're
We have Monica Moore from Southern Farm for your appearance here today.
Oh my God. I don't think the Navy guy can hold this up.
Oh, trust me, I'll help you out.
Excuse me?
May not make the Jeep.
Did you really? You were really Navy, weren't you? Retired Navy?
The lieutenant commander is going to help you out with all that.
You all know that the village people sang the theme song for the Navy, right? Okay.
And with that, that's it. It's over.
Hey, we're all done now.
Acres away. Appreciate it. Aim high, acres away, semper fidelis, semper paratus. You know, we poke fun at each other in the United States military. But let me tell you something. When you challenge our country, we all come together
Amen.
to kick the crap out of the bad guys. And that's what we need to do here in Texas. It ain't about black, white, Hispanic, Asian, nothing. It's about being a Texan. And we need to be unified and standing up for freedom. God bless you all. Thank you.